Val.
I'm Ryan, and these are our den modern Alpine builds.
We're in Packwood, Washington, about 20 minutes outside Mount Rainier National Park. We're here to tell you about the cost of our cabin build.
So we started buying cabins here in 2015 is when we bought our first one. We bought the one behind us in 2018, and we got the cabin with 2 additional lots for roughly $170,000. By the time we thought about building on these additional lots, I think it's safe to say we both had intense renovation fatigue. So we were pretty excited about building something from the ground up, where we didn't have to correct mistakes or address, decades of neglect. So den served us exactly what we needed.
We decided that we had to have it be 2 discrete sort of properties, with each one with its own septic system. They're already on separate tax parcels, so if we ever sold the places in the future, they would just kind of be their own standalone properties.
Of course, you've got to have a foundation to build these cabins. We got a poured concrete foundation. Total cost per cabin was about $6,000.
So here on the front deck, we have a Cedar Soaking Tub. That is about $4,000. The deck we're standing on is about $7 grand to get the wraparound. All the windows up top and the sliding glass door, that came out to about $13,000. And then the roof is a standing seam metal roof, and that cost about $10,000.
So our all-in cost for electrical was between 11 and 12 grand. We've got a lot of electrical demand here, and we don't have any gas service. Electricity in the Pacific Northwest, we've got hydroelectric dams. The juice is very cheap here, so it just makes sense to go all electric out here. If you open up the panel, this is a square D Homeline panel. We've used literally every slot. So between the fact that we're using a tankless water heater, which uses a ton of juice, we've got the cooktop, the oven, the hot tub. There's a huge electrical draw here. So for such a tiny space, we got a whole lot of electrical stuff packed in here. So I had started doing cabinetry and built-ins in some of our other cabins, and I felt like it was important to do that here, perhaps more than at any of the other cabins, just because it was such a tiny footprint. So in order to pack in a lot of design and function into such a small space, I definitely wanted to do built-ins. I wanted to do overhead cabinets just because we don't have tons of storage here. So I think all in, we probably spent in the ballpark of about $6,000 just on lumber. I did almost all of the labor, assembling them, joining them, sanding, staining, all that stuff, getting them hung. So we realized some cost savings there. But we also bought at the peak of when lumber was fully inflated. So we paid more for lumber 6 months, a year ago than we probably would right now. So that cost is probably a little inflated.
So we spent about $14,000 total for the appliance package in here, which includes all the kitchen appliances and the washer and dryer, which is right behind here. And the ductless heat pump up there is actually air conditioning and heat, and that cost about $6,000.
The ship ladder here, you can buy these kinds of products at retail, spiral staircases or just kind of kit ladders. They're typically really expensive. So this is an area where we found an opportunity to kind of cut back on costs. This is just 2x10 stud lumber. I assembled it with 3/8 dowels, gas pipe here, and it's mounted at the top and bottom with basic Simpson braces. So really simple structure, but it does the job, and all in, I don't think it costs more than $500 to install it. Having an indoor fire is kind of a requirement for that cabin experience. So we wanted to have a wood stove or a pellet stove in here. A wood stove has the added benefit of being useful during a power outage, which is pretty common out here. We opted for a pellet stove ultimately just because of supply chain disruptions during the pandemic. It was just really hard to find stovepipe. It was crazy expensive. And we weren't wild about having that penetration through the roof anyway. So we opted for the pellet stove, which actually does use electricity, but it uses very little. So it's still useful to us in a power outage because we have a backup generator that our guests can just plug right into the wall. So we have minimal power here to operate this thing. It only uses about 200 watts, provides more than enough heat for a space this size, and we think it looks pretty nice too. So if I remember right, the unit itself costs about between $1,200 and $1,400, and the total installed cost is probably about $3 grand. So the bathroom is a place where we splurged and saved. We decided to go with just standard white subway tile, a black and white bathroom, just kind of timeless. When you get larger tile patterns like this, you can save a little bit of money on installation labor. So I think all in, tile came in probably between $3 and $4 grand. We spent a little bit on the Toto toilet. It's a Toto toilet, bidet attachment. If you've used a toilet in Japan, they're amazing. So we went with the amazing Japanese toilet. Plumbing for the kitchen and the bathroom came to about $6,000. And then where we found an opportunity to save a little bit of money is on the floor. This is a rubber coin dot floor. You typically only find that in commercial, industrial settings, garages, kitchens, places like that where aesthetics aren't really a consideration. Nice thing about it is that it's bulletproof, it's totally durable, it's easy to clean, and it's also pretty inexpensive, maybe $350 per square foot, and it comes on rolls, so it's super easy to install.
The total construction cost for each of these cabins is $238,000, which works out to about $530 per square foot.
That square footage number is kind of misleading. You know, these are tiny cabins, only about 420 square feet. The thing with that is that whether you have 400 square feet or 4,000 square feet, you still need a 200 amp service panel. You still got to wire the cabin. Our county, we're mandated to install a minimum 2-bedroom septic system, no matter the square footage. So we're distributing some of those expensive items over a very small footprint, so that dollar per square foot metric gets inflated necessarily. So we came into this experience with a really clear kind of creative and design vision. It was easy for us to imagine kind of what we wanted these spaces to look like, how we wanted them to function. But we also came into it really understanding what it would take in terms of time, labor, materials to really pull it off. And that we were doing it for a new space meant that we didn't have the headaches that come with, you know, buying a place that's been neglected for several years or decades, or a place that just wasn't built right in the first place.
And I think that having so many options from Den really kind of allows us to kind of choose from a nice library of possibilities in terms of new builds. So it's been, yeah, super useful just to be able to imagine what a new build could look like. There's just so many options.
So we bought and renovated our very first cabin, Little Owl, back in 2015. We named it Little Owl based on a $2 thrift store purchase. People seem to buy into it, so every cabin since has been named after a cute little forest critter. These two, in that spirit, will be named Chicory and Pika. You can book either one at littleowlcabin.com.